Hey folks, today we are going to do a quick review of using text evidence. I think a lot of the things in this presentation are probably a review, and you might learn a few new things as well. So here's our introduction to text evidence. If we have to define text evidence, the best way to define it is just by saying that it is supporting evidence to back up whatever point you're making in your writing. This could be in writing, like I stated, or it could be in a persuasive speech you're making, an informative speech. But when you have a claim that you're trying to prove, you should use supporting evidence to back up the point that you are making. Where to find text evidence? Most of your evidence will be details from the text that you are writing about, which you can quote or paraphrase. In reading class in particular, we often read nonfiction articles, and we'll start reading short stories and novels as well. And as we are reading and analyzing those works, we will be using them to also find evidence to support the analysis that we're making about them. We're going to go a little further now in talking about the difference between quoting and paraphrasing evidence. So there are two ways to use and find evidence. The first is with direct quotations. A direct quote is an exact copy of the words that your author has written or a speaker has used. You surround a direct quotation with quotation marks. So when you see quotation marks, those imply that this was spoken or written exactly as I read it or heard it. On the other hand, a paraphrase is when you put something written or spoken by someone else into your own words, and a paraphrase does not have quotation marks. A good strategy for paraphrasing is to read the text that you want to paraphrase, close the book, and then write about it from memory. So your paraphrase must be accurate. You can't change information in a paraphrase, but a good way to avoid accidentally copying or plagiarizing is by closing that book and writing about it from memory. So here's an example of a paraphrase and a direct quote. Ever wonder what it takes to be a competitive eater? Just ask Joey Chestnut, 8-time winner of Nathan's Famous Hot Dog Eating Contest. Joey, who once ate 69 hot dogs in 10 minutes, told Eat It magazine that being a competitive eater is all about finding your rhythm and getting your hands, mouth, throat, and stomach all working together. So this gray shaded area is an example of a paraphrase. There are no quotation marks, and what it does is it summarizes what Joey Chestnut told Eat It magazine. Now let's keep going. Having been a competitive eater for almost 10 years now, Joey knows what works. Jump up and down a little bit, Joey advises. It helps the food settle to the bottom of your stomach. Now this is a direct quotation. We can tell that because we have quotation marks around the words that Joey spoke. So those are the differences. A paraphrase put into your own words and a direct quotation is a copied, direct word-for-word quote from a speaker or writer. Now, here are 3 tips for using text evidence in your writing. The first tip is quoting or paraphrasing. When you're using a direct quote, you should copy down the exact words from the sentence. You cannot make anything up here. You should also surround a direct quotation with quotation marks. And to paraphrase, which is another strategy, is to put something written or spoken by someone else into your own words. You don't change the meaning of what the other person wrote or said, only the wording. You can't take someone's words and twist them. You can't make implications or suggestions that are not there. But what you can do is simply create a summary and put it in your own words. And then the last element is that a paraphrase has no quotation marks because you are not directly quoting someone else's words. The second tip is that in your writing, you should make it very clear where your evidence comes from. So here's how to do that. You should identify in your writing who wrote or said what you will be quoting or paraphrasing, and that's called citing your source. And you should also include a page number when you're doing this. Here are some helpful sentence starters for introducing evidence that identifies your author and also gives a verb about what the author is doing in their writing. So you could say, according to the author, you could say the author claims, the author suggests, explains, the author describes, the author states, the author reveals, and there are many more ways that you can do this. This is just a limited list, but these are great sentence starters for introducing evidence. And our third tip is you should explain why your evidence is relevant. And to do that, you should include a sentence that makes it clear how the text evidence supports your idea. You can also reread the information you quoted or paraphrased and ask yourself, so what? And the answer to the question, so what, is often going to be an explanation of how your evidence supports your idea. So here's some helpful sentence starters that you should use after you introduce evidence that helps explain the connection between the point you're trying to make and the evidence you found. You could say the author says this because, this proves that, this explains, this illustrates, this demonstrates, this suggests, this confirms. Again, this is just a list of a few limited sentence starters. There are many ways to begin a sentence that helps explain your evidence, but these are a few to help you out. So this is just, again, an overview of using text evidence. Please go back and watch different parts of the video, pause as you need to fill in your notes, and let me know if you have any questions.